So my Zen teacher's teacher shared something that she heard someone say, that ultimate reality is not limited to the limitations of our perceptions. So to me, this means that there are entire worlds all around us, other dimensions, other realms of existence, but they're beyond our conventional, conditioned experiences of the world. Nothing is hidden. It's a matter of our perception. And by perception, I'm thinking of our five senses, but also our minds, our hearts, our intuition. So how can we move beyond our conditioned experiences to tap into these other worlds? How can we expand and clarify our senses so we can gain access to realities beyond our habits of perception? So it's been interesting thinking about this word reverie. When I was first asked to do this talk, it didn't really conjure anything specific for me. And I talked about it with a lot of my friends, and we never really came to a definite idea of what it was. And in fact, more than one of my friends was like, isn't it a loud celebration with a lot of horns? And I was like, I think you're thinking of revelry. So, reverie comes from the French word rêver, and it means to dream. And it's defined as having pleasant dreamlike thoughts, or being lost in one's thoughts. And the more I read about it, there seemed to be a spiritual or magical quality to reverie. So maybe reverie can help us break our habits of thinking and seeing, giving us access to ultimate reality. So this makes me think of my practice of Zen meditation, or Zazen. This practice has made me aware of the processes of my mind and how my thinking mind limits my perception of myself, of others, and the world around me. My thinking mind is useful, but it has its limitations. So both Zen and reverie seem to be this relaxing of our thinking mind, allowing us to find clarity, opening doors to creativity, and realities beyond what we think we know. So think about whenever you have a problem and you're thinking about it a lot and you're talking to all your friends and you can't come to a resolution. So you go for a walk, you go for a swim, you meditate. These are things that I do. And that's when the answer arises. Or you realize it wasn't a problem after all. So our instruction in Zen meditation is to think, not thinking. And that's actually a quote from one of our texts, think, not thinking. And this non-thinking is also translated from the Japanese as beyond thinking or before thinking. And another teacher tells us to open the hand of thought. So last month, I visited my brother, sister, and niece in LA, and I was really struck by a transcendental painting exhibit. And these paintings are dating to the late 1930s to the mid-1940s. And I didn't know anything about the Transcendental Painting Group, but I have since learned that they were a group of American artists based in the Southwest, in New Mexico and Southern California. And they wanted to distinguish their work from abstract art and non-objective art because they believed that their art was spiritual as opposed to formal. They felt a sense of purpose to communicate meaning beyond the mundane world. And they saw painting as a way to access and express an inner life of the spirit. They were trying to reach beyond the illusory forms of materialism into the reality of the form of the immaterial. And these are all words from the artists themselves. So through art, the Transcendental Painting Group believed that we can attain different levels of consciousness and realities. Art offers a way for artists to understand their experience along the spiritual path, but it also affects the viewer, and this happens through the body. So the Transcendental Painting Group believed that form and color convey energy, And this was not a new idea, but they were also influenced by a newer metaphysical idea at the time about thought forms, this idea that thoughts are things, and they have corresponding color, form, and auras. Andy Besant and Charles Leadbeater's 1925 book, Thought Forms, influenced a wide range of artists during this time, including Hilma af Klint, who some of you may be familiar with. And Hilma af Klint was the early 20th century Swedish visionary who communicated with the spirit world to create these diagrams of higher reality. And her show at the Guggenheim in 2019 had the highest attendance of museum history. Over 600,000 people saw that show. Why do you think that is? So Hilma af Klint used her mind and body as a conduit for information from the universe. She and 4 women, known as the Five, conducted seances and created automatic drawings over a 10-year period. So they were looking inward and connecting with the spirit world to understand the functioning of the world and what life is all about. So it was after this time that af Klint began work on the 10 largest paintings, which were in the previous image, and that was in 1907. And these images here, on the left is an image from one of her notebooks where she's trying to make sense of these messages that she's receiving from her spirit teachers. And the pencil drawing is one of the automatic drawings that came through her as a medium. So an experience I've had recently in the studio is collaborating with my late mentor, Steve Addis. He taught me Chinese painting and calligraphy, Japanese art, and Zen in the arts at the University of Richmond. And we were very close, and we kept in touch over the years. And he just passed away last year. But I inherited a number of his ink paintings and calligraphy from his studio after he died. And I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I started cutting them up and incorporating them into my collages. And so the black and white elements that you see are his ink paintings, the black ink on white paper. Working with these images, it's like I've conjured his presence, and I was not expecting that at all. So there was no hesitation for me to cut up this work. I heard his laugh, and he loved the idea. So it's an opportunity for us to actually work together like we used to. So Agnes Pelton, her work was included in the Transcendental Painting exhibit. And learning more about her, I've read her paintings described as private reverie and spiritualist reveries. So Pelton was interested in meaning beyond the physical. She tapped into other worlds through her dreams and through meditations. And she was influenced by alternative feminine spirituality like theosophy, Agni Yoga, Tantra, and the supernatural. And this all provided a spiritual practice for her to expand her perception and see in new ways. And Theosophy was founded by Helena Blavatsky in the late 19th century, and it draws on Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, as well as the supernatural and metaphysical beliefs. And I definitely see a Buddha in this painting by Agnes Pelton. So Blavatsky is quoted as saying that spirituality is not about virtue and goodness, but rather it's about the power of receiving formless spiritual essences. And Hilma af Klint was also deeply influenced by Theosophy. So seeing Agnes Pelton's work in person, it truly glows. There's a jewel-like quality to her paintings, and when I was viewing them, I just thought it was magic, but I've since learned that it's a result of a laborious process of glazing. So she is layering lots and lots of layers of oil paint. She's thinning down the oil paint, waiting for each layer to dry before she adds the next layer. And so these paintings are taking her years to create. So the result of that layering is this luminosity. It's almost like a chemical reaction of the pigments where light begins to reflect and refract. It's truly magnificent. And whenever I was viewing the paintings, I was like, I wish they were bigger, but now I understand why she was working in the scale that she was. So there's an airiness and ethereal quality to Pelton's paintings. And she said that her aim was to paint as if moth wings were applying the paint. And she's quoted also as saying, "These pictures are like little windows opening to the view of a region not yet much visited consciously or by intention, an inner realm rather than an outer landscape." And she believed that art should not only deal with appearance, but capture the inside, the deeper resonance beneath the visible world. And there is this element in a lot of her paintings, like this top. It almost looks like we're looking through an aperture. They are really like her inner vision. So the descriptions of transcendental painting make me think, they sound similar to me as Chinese and Japanese painting and calligraphy, as well as Hindu and Buddhist art. Art that is created to express energy, but also art that's created as religious practice. Art in these traditions is a way to expand perceptions for the artist and the viewer, and it's also a way to express one's journey to enlightenment. So the main idea behind traditional Chinese landscape painting as early as the 4th century is to express qi, and qi is energy or life breath. And it's to express the qi of not only a place, but also the artist. So this energy is beyond the visible, and it was accessed through the artist's emotional response to nature, perhaps their experience of reverie in nature. So this painting on the left is an 11th century landscape painting. It's very tumultuous. The rocks are really billowing, and the sense of unrest is the result of the artist's brushwork, which may tell us something about his temperament. And then the other painting is a 17th century painting by the Buddhist monk Dao Qi. And he tried to understand the hidden forces of heaven and earth, which sounds similar to transcendental painting's interest in the inner life of the spirit. So in my own work, I'm working with commercial images of women in advertising. So mail order catalogs and comic books dating to the 1940s to the 1980s. And I'm working to breathe new life into these forgotten images, to reveal something of the inner worlds of these women that are otherwise obscured by the original context of these images. So if reverie is a relaxing of our thinking mind, I think my process involves reverie. When I'm in the studio, I don't know what I'm doing, and a lot of artists will tell you the same thing. But my process involves listening to images. I'm looking through thousands of images, and I'm using original source material. I'm not on Google, so I have stacks and stacks of catalogs and comic books. And when the images that I choose to work with, they strike me. It's really quite physical. I feel it in my body. So there's something about these images that I'm working to reveal, something beyond just their appearance. And those who connect with the work will have their own interpretations. I'm working to expand the viewer's perception of these images. These images are familiar. We recognize these women as fashion models in mail order catalogs, and so by design, they limit the ways that we view women. But now, through the art process, how has the image changed? How does the art now offer new possibilities for the ways that we can imagine women? So I use an image transfer process in my work, which involves scanning and enlarging and printing images, layering it with glue, saturating the print, rubbing away all the paper until I'm magically left with a transparent image that then gets worked into the many layers of my collage. So through the process, there's a lot of interaction with the image. It's quite meditative and tactile and intimate. From the initial choice of isolating the image to arranging the composition and arranging all the many layers, I'm interacting with the image. I don't know what I'm doing from the start. It's really, once I have the transferred image, it tells me what to do. And this largely has to do with the torn and eroded edges of the transfer. To me, these edges recall Japanese calligraphy. Similar to the expressiveness of the brushwork in Japanese calligraphy, the eroded edges of the transfer have meaning and hopefully resonate with the viewer as well. So we may expect calligraphy by a woman to be very delicate, but the 17th century woman artist, Sasaki Shogen, she defies this expectation. I think her forceful, blunt brushwork heavy with ink is really, she's creating her own dramatic style here, which is saying something about her character as well. So similarly, Agnes Pelton attributed expressive significance to meandering lines, and this is one of her paintings here on the left. And on the right, this is calligraphy by the 19th century Japanese Buddhist nun, poet, and potter, Otagaki Ragetsu. And her calligraphy is delicate and elegant, but there's a confident, openness to these rounded forms. And her name, Otagaki Ragetsu, translates lotus moon. And so there is a serene openness, I think, to her calligraphy that comments on her personal character. There really is a feeling of light in that open space, like the moon. So her poem here, which includes a painting of a little demon, it reads, "Won't you open the lotus inside and turn those demons from your heart?" So the lotus here is referring to spiritual awakening or enlightenment. And Pelton's painting, Heart Music, to me seems to be an answer to Ragetsu's poem. There's a similar airy feel with its open, singing heart. And I really feel this painting in my heart. It was really quite moving to be in the presence of this painting. And notice that her looping string of bells is open. She leaves that open at the top left. So what I'm inspired most by the women artists I've included today is their fearless dedication to their own vision, their dedication to understanding what's beyond the visible, which seems dependent on reverie. So, and I want to make clear that the spiritual dimension in art is not, it's not a thing of the past. It's very much alive today. It's just that nobody wants to talk about it, especially art historians. So there's a lot of contemporary women artists whose work is similarly informed by spiritual underpinnings. And I'm going to share just a few that I'm really inspired by. So Mayumi Oda, she's reimagining deities and gods across cultures as the divine feminine. And Shirin Neshat is painting poetry. She's inscribing poetry on women's bodies, and she's asking questions about the experiences of women in Islam. And Wagechi Mutu is melting boundaries by merging female form and here a crocodile, creating these hybrid spiritual or mythical beings. And Shazia Sikander, she includes a woman as an equal participant on the roof of the courthouse in New York, which is among 9 men, male lawgivers and philosophers. And notice the lotus blossom in her piece. So these women artists are using their art to understand their experience of the world. They're asking, how does one's individual experience function as part of the whole? What is the relationship of the particular and the universal? They're creating art for humanity, not for themselves. So this last image is one of my pieces, and the title is Loud and Clear. And this is an image of the Hindu goddess Parvati. And I'm wondering, after all of this talk about reverie and looking inward, especially in a culture that's vying for our attention from every direction at every moment, where the speed of light is not fast enough, I'm wondering, why does a goddess plug her ears? Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm going to open the floor for some questions, if you have one. And I will start by just saying, where are you exhibiting next, and where will you be that we can find you?
Eric Schindler Gallery here in Church Hill. She carries my work, and she has about 7 pieces in the gallery currently. So that's at 23rd and Broad. It's the oldest gallery in Richmond. And then I'll have a piece, the VMF, I also work at the museum, so there's a staff show that opens, I think, the 23rd of June. There's a reception, so at the studio school, I will have work there.
Okay, so stay tuned on our social handles. We'll be sharing some of those. Who's got a question for Blythe this morning? I see some hands. I see movement. Wave at me.
Oh, good, we have one.
Hi. Okay. Okay, so the question was, when you start the process, what is...
Oh, yeah, maybe it's, that's interesting. Maybe it's the source material. I think as a collage artist, I kind of end up, like the mail order catalogs, I just kind of get obsessed with sort of this one avenue of imagery, but really there's, the imagery available is limitless. So maybe, deciding how to focus on, on where to source images sometimes can be difficult. Because a lot of often it's really by chance. The mail order catalogs, it was an estate sale, like it was about 10 years ago. It was in Church Hill. It was like one of the, really packed house, but the only thing I found there was this, it was a 1949 Montgomery Ward's mail order catalog. And so it was just by chance, but I was really fascinated by it as this historical archive of images. But that really I'm still interested in it. I'm still working with those images. Waiting for that, chance encounter.
Go ahead.
You sort of just answered it, but I was interested to know more about your journey that led to this. And to your point, I found these books at an estate sale, but maybe before that, how did you go from art school to now being this artist?
Yeah, well, I didn't go to art school, so just gonna.
I thought you said you did. Sorry.
Oh, my background is in religious studies. So I did study art, but really my training is in religious studies. So it's Buddhism and art. And so I think it was, again, like I said, I'm looking beneath the appearance of these women. And I also feel a responsibility, I think, in our culture to shift the culture, especially with regard to how we view women. So I think by using these familiar images from advertising, that already connects the viewer to the piece. And I'm hoping that it starts, there is some process of wonder in the viewer of okay, why, what happened here? I know what that image is, but it's different. That's what I really love about collage, because there is this inherent double meaning. You have that meaning of the original context, but now it's changed. So there is this interesting experience, I think, as a viewer. So I think it is a mixture of this, my background in, I learned religion through the art, and I teach at the community college. I teach world religions. I do the same thing. That's how all of my professors were art historians and artists. So I think I recognized parallels between these fashion models and deities in religious art. And I was kind of wondering, what if we saw these women as gods? Would that get us to change the culture?
Go ahead. Can you scream or do
Yeah, so my question, obviously your work is very tied into spiritual element, but I wanted to know sort of practically how, or if there is an interaction between your practice of Zazen and the way that you practice art.
Absolutely. I think that it has helped me understand what I'm doing. It has helped me understand how, like I said, how our conditioning limits the way we view things. So I think that has helped me understand how I'm trying to open up new ways for how we imagine women, because I wanted to make that shift. So it is really about being aware of our conditioning. I think that my practice, I'm still relatively new, I'm like 5 years in, and so that's been really an important process for me, though, is to just recognize and be aware of how my mind works and how that thinking relates to my daily life, and has helped me understand my artwork a lot, actually.
Go ahead.
I'm curious about how you engage with the spirit world through your work, and you were able to identify that you felt the presence of a past teacher. Do you have other guides or interpreters that you can identify as individual energies, or how does that work?
I know. I feel like it was something that I was attuned to when I was younger, but am now just starting to encounter people in my life that are serving as those guides, and kind of reopening that world up for me. My encounter with Dr. Addis was really surprising. It was almost like, I mentioned the qi, right, and the Chinese landscape paintings. It was almost like cutting up his ink paintings released his qi, because it really was, like I said, this physical, it really conjured his presence. So it's just starting, maybe.
We have a question over here.
Great.
So I really enjoyed that you asked a question about your artwork. and I wanted to answer it because I think that she's plugging her ears in order to listen to herself, because there's a lot more color inside of her that you've put there. And I'm wondering if that is an image that you did find. Is that?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm awaiting. Yeah, I mean, that's my interpretation, I think, of this image, but I'm also curious as to the original context. So I have it. It was passed to a friend's teacher at the Hindu temple. So we are waiting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I was curious
Because I
about
do have a bad habit of cutting images out and then not remembering what I cut it out of. So I lost the information.
The yellow or the gold around.
It's gold. Yeah.
It's gold.
It's gold leaf.
That I was curious about. I wasn't.
Like how I use it, or
Yeah, or no, just in this case.
yeah. So you use an adhesive first. So it's like a very thin glue, and so I end up using it like ink, or like paint. And so I actually So it is really thin, but I let some of the water evaporate so it got thicker, and that's how I was able to get like the dimension of the little dots. But each of the dot is just like a paintbrush. And then the adhesive dries like overnight, and then you come back with the gold leaf, and then the gold leaf just adheres to wherever you lay down the adhesive, which is really fun to do.
Yeah,
It's like gold dusting, because the glue dries clear, so you don't really see where you had originally put the glue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Blythe, when we had talked, you said you have students that come up to you and say, I want to do what you do. And how did you get here? What is your response to them?
Oh, I guess, I mean, my experience, I'm very multifaceted. Like, I think I've mentioned at least 3 jobs that I have. I also have a nonprofit, Open Space Education, which is an outdoor education for youth in the city. And it's combining art education and nature-based learning. But that really started because, I guess, to remain open and looking for openings, you know, in the difficulties, actually, because that nonprofit Open Space really was founded in response to the pandemic, because I'm an art educator and I had a group of students I was working with, and everything shut down. And I was like, I can't just leave these students. So I started taking them on outings. I contacted their parents, and actually I created a summer-long program on Hilma Off Clint because she was so inspired by nature. And so we started visiting parks all throughout the city, and it was the students saying, I feel more focused outside in nature. I'm using all of my senses. And so I was like, this is really important. And of course, all the research supports that. And so I founded Open Space based on that. So I think, and that wasn't like an idea that I had. It was something that it was like it happened because I found this opening during the pandemic. There was a need that needed fulfilled. And so I think to expand and clarify your perception, it's really important, and it's really hard to do right now, I think.
Hi, I have a question. It's a
Yes.
technical question. When one of your slides was up and you were talking about like the 5 women, I know you want to talk. You used a term called like an active drawing versus
Automatic.
automatic
Yeah.
drawing.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so that is actually, we kind of did it to, you know, it's like thinking of yourself as more of a medium. So you're not actually making conscious decisions, but you're just creating you're just like the body that the drawing is coming through. So she's getting all of this information. I mean, she's a clairvoyant, highly sensitive, and she became like the one out of the 5 who really did these drawings. All this information was coming through. But you can kind of just try to relax your thinking mind and draw what comes through. Pay attention to what's inside. And that was kind of the exercise that we did, with the students. Yes.
Last one.
Do you feel something different when your work is done? Like, is there a moment that you kind of wake up from the routine and you say, like, this is finished now, or is there always sort of the nagging, like,
Well, if there's something telling me to keep working, then it's not done. So yes, and it also, for me, it's very physical. It's almost like a balance kind of, it's like I sense the composition as balanced, or, I think that's what it feels like. But it is, it's definitely clear whenever that happens. Mm-hmm.
Blythe, thank you so very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
That was amazing. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for. This is a beautiful introduction to our topic. and this month, right? The Reverie, the dream. And I like how you stated at the very beginning, you said, giving yourself and going into your studio is also some of this permission to give you a dream. I have one last question and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
Where did you dream as a child?
Where did I dream as a child? In the woods, for sure. Yeah. I was lucky to have woods out in my backyard, and also lucky that my parents let me do that. I don't know that kids are allowed to do that anymore. So I really spent all of my free time and swimming. I was a swimmer, so being in the water with my own mind allowed me definitely time to myself and time to dream.
Thank you again so very much.
Thank you.
We are wrapping up Reverie. I hope all of you take a moment to spend some time where you dream this summer. I just want to read this text that came through during Creative Mornings this morning to all of you to end our day. As I said, we do not have an event in July, and in August we're doing a service project, and this is the text. Frontier will buy Strong Like Ollie shirts for every single attendee for the August Give Back Day. We are to let him, Frontier and Grant, know what the cap is, what the sizes are. So I hope to see all of you in August, but thank you, Frontier, for getting us all Strong Like Ollie shirts. As I texted it to Lindsay and then I showed it to our friend Jerry over there, I think all of us were kind of crying at the beginning anyway. So thank you very much. And thank you all for coming today. May you have all the space to dream this summer, and we'll see you in August.